Did you know that after age 40, the average person can lose up to 8% of their muscle per decade if nothing is done? That's a staggering statistic, and it sets the stage for why today's discussion matters so much. In response to this fact, many people rush toward the same supposed solution: eat more protein. You've probably heard that old line, "You can never get too much protein." On the surface, it sounds logical. Protein is the raw material of muscles, the foundation of strength training, the fuel that seems indispensable for anyone who wants to remain strong while aging. But here's the reality. This belief can backfire, especially once you've crossed 40. At the very stage of life when men and women start worrying about muscle loss, also known as sarcopenia, overloading on protein can bring more risks than benefits. The dream of a lean, toned body drives countless people into overconsumption. Whey shakes at every turn, endless egg whites, and even extreme diet fads like all-meat or keto regimens become the go-to strategies. Yet after 40, the body simply doesn't respond the way it once did. Metabolism slows, hormones shift, and what was once easily absorbed now becomes harder to manage. Protein remains essential, but your body's capacity to handle it is not infinite. And this is where the silent danger creeps in. While you may believe you're reinforcing your muscles, in truth, you may be straining your liver and kidneys, fueling inflammation, and even encouraging fat storage. Sometimes, your body will start sending signals, and they're not subtle. Persistent bad breath, nagging digestive problems like diarrhea or constipation, and even unusual thirst can all be signs that nitrogen waste is piling up from protein overload. The frightening part is that most people dismiss these red flags because they've been conditioned to believe that more protein is always better. Sarcopenia, for those less familiar with the term, is the gradual and natural age-related decline in muscle mass. And this isn't just about vanity or appearance. Losing muscle means losing physical strength, balance, mobility, and eventually independence. Imagine your muscles as the pillars holding up a house. As they weaken, so does the entire structure. Sarcopenia is a slow-moving enemy, one that creeps in decade by decade, quietly undermining your freedom until one day you realize it has robbed you of vitality. So the real question isn't how much more protein can I stuff in, but rather what's the right amount to preserve muscle without sacrificing the rest of your health? Even more critical, what other factors play a role in fighting sarcopenia besides protein itself? Because if the solution were as simple as eating more, no one would ever age frail or weak. Over the next few minutes, we'll dive into this overlooked truth. You'll discover when protein is your greatest ally and when too much of it becomes an invisible enemy. We'll explore the safe limits, why protein alone doesn't guarantee stronger muscles, and what truly makes the difference in staying vibrant and resilient after 40. Protein doesn't just build muscle, it also supports dozens of critical processes that keep your body alive and well. Hormone production, nutrient transport, and immune defense all rely heavily on protein. That's why doctors and nutrition experts consistently remind adults over 40 to pay closer attention to their intake. But here's the trap. More isn't always better. Your body has very clear limits on how much protein it can effectively use. Beyond that, you're not fueling strength, you're overloading your system. Research from respected institutions like Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic shows that most adults only need 0.36 to 0.54 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. That equals about 56 to 84 grams daily for someone weighing 154 pounds. If you train consistently with resistance exercise, you may need a little more, roughly 0.7 to 0.9 grams per pound.
Which works out to 110 to 140 grams daily for that same person. But that's the safe ceiling. Going far beyond it doesn't translate into extra muscle. Instead, it forces your organs, especially the liver and kidneys, to take on unnecessary stress. So what exactly happens with the excess? Unlike fat, which the body can store in adipose tissue for later use, protein has no storage compartment. Once you've consumed more than your body requires, the liver must step in. Through a process called gluconeogenesis, it converts the surplus protein into glucose or fat. That repeated strain day after day adds up. Over time, it can trigger chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and even the buildup of fat inside the liver, a condition linked to fatty liver disease. Another overlooked consequence of very high-protein diets is what they leave out. When your plate is dominated by steak, eggs, or endless protein shakes, there's less space for fruits, vegetables, and fiber-rich foods. This imbalance has a direct effect on your gut microbiome, the diverse community of beneficial bacteria that live in your intestines. A weakened microbiome doesn't just affect digestion, it also compromises your immune system, influences your metabolism, and even plays a role in mood regulation. The paradox is almost ironic. In the pursuit of health, many people end up creating an internal imbalance that works against them. This is what I call the protein trap. Countless people live in fear that if they don't consume massive amounts of protein, their muscles will vanish overnight. That fear is fueled by supplement ads, social media influencers, and bro science repeated endlessly in gyms until it sounds like fact. But scientific evidence points in the opposite direction. It's not protein excess that protects you from sarcopenia. It's the balance of resistance training, quality recovery, and steady nutrition. Protein plays a starring role, but it's part of a much larger cast. When protein intake climbs too high, the kidneys are the first organs to feel the strain. They're forced to filter a heavier load of nitrogen waste, and in the process, they pull more water out of the body. If you're not compensating with fluids, the result can be dehydration. Over time, that same stress raises the risk of developing kidney stones, a painful and often recurring condition. Another hidden consequence of protein overload is weight gain. Many assume that protein is immune to storage as fat, but that's not the case. Once the body's needs are met, any excess protein simply turns into extra calories. And just like any other surplus energy, it eventually shows up as fat, often in the belly where it's hardest to control. That stubborn abdominal fat doesn't just change your appearance, it also disrupts metabolism and increases the risk of chronic disease. And then there are the immediate warning signs. Persistent bad breath, often compared to keto breath, is one of the earliest indicators that your metabolism is shifting from balance to stress. Digestive problems like constipation or diarrhea are another sign that your system is under pressure. These issues aren't random or harmless. They're the body's way of raising a red flag, signaling that something is out of balance. And it doesn't stop there. The heart is also at risk. Diets overloaded with red or processed meats, bacon, sausage, deli slices have long been linked to cardiovascular disease. Studies from the University of Sydney go further, showing that very high intakes of animal protein are associated with higher rates of premature mortality. What starts as a strategy to improve health can, without balance, become a quiet but serious risk factor. Still, one of the most powerful myths keeps many people locked in this cycle. The belief that if you don't eat protein every 2 or 3 hours, your muscles will start to waste away.
The science is crystal clear. That's not true. The human body has built-in preservation systems designed to protect muscle. During fasting or skipped meals, the body doesn't immediately burn muscle for energy. It taps glycogen stores first, then fat reserves, while sparing lean tissue as long as possible. Studies show that muscle protein loss during moderate fasting is minimal, often just 6 to 8 grams per day, which can easily be replenished in your next meal. The real culprits behind sarcopenia aren't temporary dips in protein intake. They're sedentary lifestyles, poor sleep, and low-quality diets. In fact, many adults already consume more protein than they actually need without realizing it. The result isn't added muscle mass, but metabolic stress, showing up as fatigue, dehydration, digestive distress, or even skin issues that no one immediately connects to diet. The message couldn't be clearer. Moderate fasting doesn't erode your muscles, and protein overload doesn't guarantee strength. The key is the sweet spot, the right amount of protein paired with exercise and recovery. That's where real protection against sarcopenia lies. So how do we really prevent sarcopenia and preserve vitality after 40? The answer lies in a formula that's simple but often ignored. It starts with the right amount of protein. For most adults, that means 0.36 to 0.54 grams per pound of body weight per day. For someone weighing 154 pounds, that's about 56 to 84 grams daily, enough to maintain essential functions. For those engaged in regular resistance training, the number may rise to 0.7 to 0.9 grams per pound of body weight, or 120 to 140 grams daily. But beyond that, science shows little real benefit. Going higher doesn't build extra muscle. It just creates more stress for your organs. And this isn't hard to achieve. A day's worth of balanced meals can easily cover these needs. No extremes required, no endless scoops of whey powder, just real food in the right portions. The second pillar is the type of protein. Harvard and Mayo Clinic studies emphasize that variety matters. Incorporating plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, chickpeas, and soy not only supports muscle health, but also lowers cardiovascular risk and improves metabolism. These foods bring along fiber, which supports digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and nourishes the gut microbiome. This doesn't mean eliminating animal proteins like chicken, fish, or eggs, far from it. It simply means blending sources to give your body a richer spectrum of nutrients. The third pillar is the resistance training. Protein alone cannot save your muscles if you don't give them a reason to grow. Squats, push-ups, planks, weight training, Pilates, functional exercises. All of these provide the signals your muscles need to stay active and strong. Without that stimulus, protein has nowhere to go. Instead of building muscle, it might just be burned for energy or stored as fat. The fourth pillar is sleep. It may not seem connected, but poor sleep sabotages muscle health more than most people realize. Short nights elevate cortisol, the stress hormone, while suppressing growth hormone, which is essential for muscle repair. According to the Mayo Clinic, sleeping less than 6 hours a night significantly increases the risk of muscle loss. By contrast, 7 to 8 hours of quality rest gives your body the recovery window it needs to rebuild. And then comes hydration. Processing protein generates nitrogen waste that must be eliminated through the kidneys. Without enough fluids, that process stalls, and symptoms like headaches, fatigue, and kidney stones can follow. Drinking water consistently is just as much a part of the muscle preservation formula as diet or exercise. And then comes consistency. Health doesn't come from crash efforts or short bursts. You can't binge on protein one week and neglect it the next.